Hello.
Hi.
I'm Christine Henry.
And I'm April Bowden. Welcome to Truth or Rant, or the Truth or Rant of the day. We are Truth or Talk, and find our website at truthertalk.com.
TRUTHERTALK.com. Because some people think it's Truth or Talk, so I gotta specify that now.
Yeah, thanks for Yeah, we call ourselves truthers because we prefer that over liar. And speaking of liars, we're doing a show today about the recent congressional hearing on vaccination, childhood vaccination. If you haven't seen it, we'll put a link to it at the bottom. So what did you think of that, Christine?
It was the most disturbing thing since, it's like straight out of Brave New World. Mm-hmm. For real, you know? I'm just saying that, you know, I guess we're just going to comment on there's a whole video which is like 2 hours long, almost 2 hours long, right. And then there's a clip that's been circulating which is about, I think, 4 minutes long, and in that 4 minutes Senator Elizabeth Warren asked Dr. Ann Schuchat, I think that's how you say her name, these 4 questions. So she asked, 1, is there any scientific evidence that vaccines cause autism? The answer was no. Right? We all know that. People that are in the vaccine, the vaccine community, people that not only are in the autistic community but have been victims of the flu shot or Gardasil or any other vaccine injuries, we know that this is not true. And we're going to leave links to some studies and papers and that can show, you know, if you're new to this and you're looking for questions, we're going to leave some links below to help you see that that's just a flat out lie. The second question is, what is it? Sarah, is there any scientific evidence that vaccines cause profound mental disorders? The answer was no. And then she said, but some of the diseases that we vaccinate against can. Yeah, that's a lie too. And it's actually from our findings, and if you do the research, you would find that it's the vaccines that is causing the profound mental disorders.
And sometimes the vaccine causes the disease itself.
Yeah.
So,
as you can see in the package inserts, and one of the things, I went on CDC, and this is weird because I don't remember seeing this on the CDC before, and I think that they've probably been adapting because people are finding out about the package inserts. So now they have this thing, what's called a VIS, which is a vaccine information statement, and it's basically just a PDF that the CDC wrote out. That omits a lot of these things. So if you're looking for an actual vaccine insert, it looks like this. It's thin paper, and it comes with the ampule, which is like the little vial that they inject you with. And if you go to get a vaccine, they have to, each ampule has an insert. So they have to give it to you. By law, you have to be able to see it. And it opens out, this is, it opens out, and we're also going to leave, I can't look. It opens out like this, right? Or some of them are thicker, but it's like Bible paper, right. Like thin, right? It doesn't look like a PDF. Now there have been some people that they we're going to provide some links so you can actually see, and they've put this in a PDF, but it's not the same thing as a vaccine information statement. And as we noticed, the vaccine information statement on the CDC's website omits information. So and it's basically it's a lie. It's
yeah, you want to read the full vaccine insert because that will give you, for one, it will tell you what's in it, and right there that's a huge omission of guilt, because once you realize what's in a vaccine, so let's take the measles vaccine for example. Measles vaccine is made with a live virus, measles, and you cannot get the measles vaccine by itself. You have to get it with the measles, mumps, and rubella, so the MMR. And I think now they're making a quad. I'm not sure what the 4th virus is, but that one is.
I think it's V, right? MMRV.
So that's varicella.
Varicella, that's the chicken pox.
Varicella, so that's also the chicken pox. So
all-in-one injection.
Right,
yeah.
So they're doing them all in one injection. And rubella, that portion of the virus has been cultivated in aborted fetal tissues for many, many years. And some of the other ingredients are aluminum and formaldehyde and many things that are linked to cancer and neurotoxicity. So what their claim is that it's not in a high enough dosage for it to be problematic for anybody. No one's going to have a toxic effect. But when you're injecting it into children, what people might not realize is that a child under the age of 8 months, and sometimes even up to the age of 2 years, hasn't an immune system on their own. So this is why they depend on their mother's milk when they're breastfeeding, because she develops the antibodies for them that helps them fight disease that they come into contact with in the environment. Between about 8 months and 2 years is when they start to develop their own. So if you're injecting a child under the age of 8 months, for sure, they're not going to develop antibodies to fight those viruses. So instead, what may happen is that they may actually get the virus itself, or it may lay dormant within them and cause some of these other problems that they claim the vaccine doesn't cause.
Even though it's in the insert.
Right. Even though it's in the insert, for example, encephalopathy, they'll say there is no link to any. What was the last one that she said? Was there any evidence to show that last one you had caused profound mental disorders?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lie, because even through the pharmaceutical company's own admission, through their research, they say one of the side effects is encephalopathy, which is swelling of the brain and inflammation of the brain that causes mental disorders.
Profound mental disorders.
And any number of mental disorders. And they said that the disease also causes that as well. Well, you're giving us the disease through a live virus injection.
Which means it bypasses the blood-brain barrier. And when you get a virus or disease or whatever, you inhale it, comes in through your orifices, and through that process, your body has a better chance of fighting it off, because it doesn't bypass your blood-brain barrier. And this is when you're injecting something into the muscle, it can wreak havoc and just go haywire anywhere in the body, and it can also go up to the brain and be harmful to the brain.
So the point is that they're not being truthful to people. They're not really. They're saying there isn't any scientific evidence at all, which is a lie, because through their own admission that there is. And so anyway, let's continue with the questions.
Okay, so is there any scientific evidence that vaccines have contributed to a rise in allergies or autoimmune disorders among kids? Yeah, and the answer was no. Yeah, that's a lie too, and there are actually doctors who have come out. You can find their lectures on YouTube, some of them, because they go to conferences. And I hate when people say, oh, YouTube isn't valid evidence. Well, yeah, it is if a doctor that has made a discovery or has written a study, is explaining their study to other doctors. You can watch it. Nobody's beyond being able to do that. So a lot of doctors, they go to conferences, they're invited to different places around the world, and they'll record their lectures, or somebody will record them for them, or for themselves, and they'll post it on YouTube. So we're gonna post some links up to that, as well as some studies and a couple of lectures that you can watch to see that's a lie.
Right, and what people don't recognize, or most people don't realize, and I didn't know this until about a year ago, was that the term allergy wasn't even around. The words allergies and anaphylaxis came into being after an outbreak of something called serum sickness, which was a vaccine reaction. A number of people and animals who were being inoculated actually died from a severe life-threatening allergic response, which is the term anaphylaxis. So it's an outright lie. How can it be created to describe a vaccine injury, but then there's no scientific evidence that vaccines cause allergies? So this doctor either doesn't know that fact at all, or they're omitting information to the public.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. Are there additives or preservatives in vaccines that can be toxic to kids? Yeah. Like we said, read the package inserts for the vaccines. And who would know this? Toxicologists would know this, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of studies done that have from people that are toxicologists. I mean, if they wanted to be fair, they would have, picked a toxicologist to answer this question. Even though, I mean, they can lie too, but I know for sure that that there have been studies and proving that in any amounts of the aluminum, I know for sure there's been lots of studies on aluminum, and no matter what amount you inject it into the body, it's been found to be harmful. There's also another doctor named, I think, Teresa Deisher. I'm not saying I said her name right, but she has just come out with a study and finding out that the animal DNA which is used to grow the viruses in children. I mean, in children, in the animal DNA. I'm sorry. So this is what happens. They get the virus and they grow it in like aborted fetal cell tissues or chicken embryos or monkey kidneys or all kinds of animal and human DNA. So when you get the what do you call it? When you reap the virus,
cultivate the
virus. Thank you. You can't separate that stuff, so you're injecting it into your body. And she's found out that it's actually integrating into people's DNA, which sounds very science fiction, but we're going to provide her study that you can actually read her study. And there's also she testified somewhere actually talking about the findings of her study. And she's a very prominent doctor. She's a Stanford grad. She also had something to do, I think, with, if it wasn't for sure, like just the whole thing with the discovery of heart stem cells. So, so we're going to put that in there.
You can look up the term mutagenics. And this means a genetic mutation is formed. And if you just look up the term mutagenics in vaccines or vaccine ingredients in mutagenics, what you'll find is that their genes are very mutable, meaning that they change. It's not the old science that we were taught that your genes are kind of hardwired, but they're actually highly pliable, affected by the environment. And so when you're being injected with something, it can change your genetic material. So it actually will alter your DNA. And then you can pass that on to your offspring, because now you're altered. And it sounds science fiction, but trust, if you want to look it up. It
sounds crazy, right? That's some crazy stuff.
Right, but there are, like she mentioned, there are very reputable scientists who have done studies on this and found that these ingredients are mutagenic.
Yeah, so let me see, number 4, where is there any scientific evidence that giving vaccines further apart or spacing them is healthy for kids? And she says no, and that it actually increases the risk, so it adds to the danger. Lie. Lie. Not that I'm for vaccination, but if you do want to, if you're going to do it, then it would be better to space them out. But I just want to, if you really understand the ingredients in the vaccines and what they do, you wouldn't want it. I don't think most people would want to even take vaccines. And when you also find out, when you understand how your immune system works, you won't feel that you need to have a vaccine to be health, to ensure health, because you see in the end it actually does more damage than good, and the benefits, it doesn't. What am I trying to say? The benefits are
the risk outweighs the benefit.
Thank you. The risk outweighs the benefit.
Well, let's talk about the benefit, because going back to the vaccine insert, if you look at the research that's done and how these are tested for efficacy, you'll find that in no vaccine insert will they ever admit that they are effective. In other words, you can be injected with this vaccine. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily immune to the virus that you've been injected with.
Yeah.
And this isn't us saying this. This is the pharmaceutical companies admitting that. Yeah. They'll tell you that, the way that they do these studies is, in some cases, what they'll do is they'll take a control group and then a placebo group, and they want to check and see if someone's been injected with the virus, that how many antibodies the person who has the injection has it after the fact, and then the person with the placebo, how many they have after the fact. And if the injected group has a higher number of antibodies, then they say, well, then it's determined to be effective. But we don't really know, because we can't really test that against the natural environment. If someone's going to go out into the world and acquire, and come into contact with this disease, they might still get it. Every vaccine insert will tell you that. Not one will tell you that it will protect you from the disease. Not one. That might be shocking to people, but it's the truth.
Well, they also, what they consider effective is a high amount of titers, antibody counts. So, the immune system is very complex, that even immunologists today would admit that, they don't know the full, like how it works. So you're playing Russian roulette, they're playing with this, this very complex, biological mechanism, which is our immune system. And, they found out too that, the immunity also has to do with the health of the gut flora and the lymph system. and it's not just the antibodies. So they're not even taking the full, like, you know, the whole immune system into account when they're saying that something is effective or not. And you would even see in the inserts that they say that, you know, oh, it's not fully effective, so it may, you know, it may not work. So then you were having these outbreaks now, right? And people are saying that, oh, it's the unvaccinated. But you also can look at the inserts and see that vaccines shed. You go through this process called shedding. So when you're injected with the vaccine, you become sick. So maybe some of you guys can relate to this too. It's like, have you ever gotten a flu shot and then you get sick? And then you might go to your doctor and your doctor's like, oh, you really don't have the flu.
Flu-like symptoms.
Yeah, flu-like symptoms. I'm like, oh yeah, but you know, I really had to call off of work and I really had a fever and I really was puking my guts out. So you know, it's like a Jedi mind trick, right? But you're shedding. So, you know, if you're getting injected with a vaccine, you're still a carrier basically. So you can give it to others. Another way you can find this, if you like the insert, they warn you. They say like you can transmission of the virus is you know, expected up from a certain amount of time. Some manufacturers, depending on the vaccine, they might say 2 weeks up to 60 days or more, that they don't want you to be around cancer victims or people that are undergoing chemotherapy, I should say, or people that are immunocompromised or pregnant women or children. So that's all like in the insert.
And then we'll tell you too that one of the side effects is acquiring the disease itself from the vaccine. So measles, will say one of the adverse reactions is getting the measles. And in the outbreak that she's talking about, I mean, time and time again, we're finding that the population, 98% of them have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Have been fully vaccinated.
Yeah, so fully means double. So another thing about that, if you go into herd immunity, they're saying, oh, you know, herd immunity, everybody has to get vaccinated because of that. But when mass vaccination was starting to be implemented into society, they found out the way that they measure, like we said, was the antibody titers, and they found out after a few years that the titers actually decreased. And then they're like, oh, well, then we're going to have to get booster shots. So some people might remember having to get booster shots, right? This is because they found out that the antibodies waned. So during that time, there were people walking around, you know, for a couple of decades who weren't protected, so to speak. And, I mean, no, like, disease outbreak happened. So, like, what's the deal here? And they're also finding out too. We'll put some more info. There's a couple of lectures and that articles. And we're going to put in the links that talk about the myth of herd immunity. And you know, it was based off of something that was natural. I mean, it was true because it was based off of a doctor, a scientist that observed that people had natural immunity to, I think it was like smallpox. It's probably smallpox, right?
Yeah.
I think it was smallpox. Or measles? Darn. We're going to put it in there. Forgive me. I'm not perfect. But we are well referenced, so you can go and check it out for yourself. But anyway, he noticed that this population, you know, didn't get, you know, sick after they were exposed to the disease again, and this is before they didn't have any vaccination. So this is based on natural immunity. So what people that are very pro-vaccine, the pharmaceutical industry, the CDC, like to say, oh, you know, this herd immunity thing, it protects all of us, and you know, that's the lie. In fact, I think their understanding of it, or the way that they're trying to say that vaccine-induced immunity, you know, works. It doesn't work. It actually it makes it worse because the titers were down. You're still susceptible to disease, and then you have to get boosters, but then you're messing up your immune system even more. And they're finding out too, each time you get a booster shot, that the antibodies less each time. So it's also creating somebody that's dependent on being injected to increase their titer count. But then are they always going to be, you know, dependent on that? So that's kind of creepy too. Look, what are you doing to the natural immune system, you know? Okay, where were we? And is there any scientific evidence that kids can develop immunity to these diseases on their own simply by eating nutritious foods or being active? And she said no. Are you fracking kidding me?
She kind of like laughed at it.
Yeah.
Like she thought it was just so retarded. She'd never heard something so stupid in her life.
People, you are what you eat, you know? And especially, this is interesting too with the measles outbreaks. One of the things they don't tell you is that they're using third world statistics to talk about the deaths. The people with the measles. And if you look at some of the studies and articles and observations from third world countries, they found out if they gave the people vitamin A, then they had less severe reactions, or they recovered from the measles, right?
Right.
So I found that very interesting.
Well, it's kind of misleading the way she puts it, because she's saying, well, they wouldn't have immunity. Well, not necessarily. They might get sick, but they will probably recover just fine.
Yeah.
Just like our parents did, who didn't have measles vaccines and went ahead and got the virus, and most of them lived to tell the tale just fine.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are immunocompromised, and those people can't get vaccinated anyway. So, and then, you know, and if you get the vaccine, you're not supposed to go around them. So it's not like with this whole herd immunity claim is that you're supposed to have yourself protected so that you can protect the immunocompromised. But in the vaccine insert, it tells you can't go around those people anyway when you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like...
So they know that it sheds. It's just like
exactly.
twisted.
It doesn't make any sense at all. And so what she's saying isn't an outright lie, because it's not necessarily going to mean that you're not going to get the virus, but you will have a very good chance, if you are a healthy person and you're active and you eat well, of fighting
and get rest and keep it.
And then maybe you won't acquire it at all. Maybe it will just, your immune system will fight it before you even get it.
Yeah, and you can get immunity from a disease and be exposed to it without getting sick too.
Exactly.
So, how do the risk of child's responding negatively with vaccination compare to the risk of skipping vaccinations and risking exposure to a deadly disease? So the answer to that was vaccines are safe and highly effective. Oh yeah, we've heard that before. And it's important for parents to know that this is the best way to protect their kids.
Wow.
Yeah. Really?
Well, like we've been saying, you can go to their insert and ask these questions yourself. Are they safe and are they effective? The answer is, we don't know if they're effective. We think maybe, because some people have antibodies, and and sometimes, like the study I talked about, they don't even do that. Sometimes they'll approve a vaccine, like I think it was the Tdap, the one for pertussis. They didn't even test. They didn't even have a true control group. What they did was they had one group of people that were teenagers to adults, and I think this was I'll put a link to it, but I think it was Adacel. It was one of the brands, and they had these teenagers and adults, and they gave them the vaccine, and they saw how many antibodies they had before and after they got the vaccine. And then the other group was in another country, and it was infants, and it was a different vaccine, but it was also for pertussis, and they gave it to them, and they wanted to see how many antibodies they had before and after. And so they said, well, if it's approximately the same, then therefore we can prove that this is an effective vaccine. Like, does that seem like it should even be legal? Like, how can you compare two different vaccines to two different control groups, to two different... It's not even a control group at that point. It's like, it's just crazy. It's totally out of control.
Oh, no, but they believe in science. It's okay.
Right, that's not true science at all in any way, shape, or form. It just isn't, it doesn't add up. So they can't say that they're effective. They cannot. And with absolute honesty. So in other words, she's not incredibly honest. And then, are they safe? Well, they're not. We mentioned that you can get the disease. You can shed the disease. You can also have some of the, you can have some very severe adverse reactions, as we've experienced personal experience and witnessed it with our own eyes. So, and many people out there have too.
Yeah. And also, speaking of the measles vaccine, just going back to that for a second, there's a study done from about 2005 to now, and guess how many people have died from the measles, from wild measles? 0. Guess how many people have died from the vaccine? 108. And we get this information from the VAERS report. So also in the package insert. And now they mention it on the CDC's website. They weren't so keen to mention it before, and I think it's because more people are inquiring about this.
Yeah.
But the VAERS is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And for people that have had adverse reactions, you can go and you just report it. Basically, there's nothing but it's a good way to track and see how many people have had adverse reactions from either the vaccine, whether anything from like paralysis to Guillain-Barré to death, autism, anything you can find on the VAERS report, and also I'll put a link up to this too. I think it was the end of last year. We didn't mention the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program too. Another thing that's very curious: if they're so safe and effective, how come the pharmaceutical industry cannot get sued? So if you have an adverse reaction from the vaccine that's listed in the insert, you cannot sue the pharmaceutical company.
Right.
How creepy and weird and just strange is that, right? If they're so safe and effective, they should be standing behind their product, and they should be so sure, they wouldn't have to do that. So, in the mid '80s, the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program was created, because there were a lot of people that were actually suing the pharmaceutical companies. So, what this is a program that you can't sue the pharmaceutical companies, but you can go through this program, which is paid for by the taxpayers and the government. And it's very, 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 very hard to prove that the vaccine, by their standards, right? I mean, obviously, there are lots of people you can go to, what is that, The Truth About Gardasil, and you can just go on YouTube, look at people that have died from the flu shot, people giving their testimony from all over the world. And they've gotten like adverse reactions from the vaccine, but the thing is they can't sue I lost my train of thought. They can't sue the pharmaceutical industry. They go through this program. It's a kangaroo court, so there's no trial, no trial, no like a formal trial, no jury.
It's a tribunal.
Yeah.
So you don't go in front of a jury of your peers to decide upon it. So what they have and it's not even really a real judge. It's usually like a mediator of some sort, who's appointed by the system, I guess. I don't know.
Probably the pharmaceutical industry. Probably.
The government. I mean, they're in cahoots on that, because that the CDC is the one that puts these out, or the FDA approves them, and then the CDC recommends them and puts out these programs and mandates them and has them forcibly put upon children if they want to enter school and whatnot. And every state has their own law on how much they have to, and they're cracking down on every single state, trying to make more vaccines added to the mandate list, and also make it harder for people to get exemptions. So it's a good question to ask: is if they stand by their product, then why are they so afraid of litigation to the point that they have to have legal immunity against it? And you can only sue, there's a 3-year statute of limitations, so you have to do it within 3 years after the injury occurred. And when she said it's really hard to prove, the reason it's so hard to prove is it's very difficult to get a doctor to stand by you in court. Why? Because then they are blackballed from their peers, it's suicide for any doctor or scientist to stand by you and say that. Because then that's their bread and butter. They can't make a living otherwise, and then they will be most likely, taken down. I mean, a doctor will tell you, as I've had a doctor tell me that my son had a vaccine injury, but would he stand, if I wanted to sue and have him stand by me in court, it'd be a lot harder to do. And that's usually what happens, is that the doctors, they'll tell you, it might even be in the medical record, but you need somebody to actually go in and describe it and why this happened and why they believe that this is what went on, the scientific proof of that.
All right, so number 7. This was like the last statement in that clip. So it says, parents should want to protect their children. Parents should know that all of the credible scientific evidence suggests that modern vaccines are safe, modern vaccines are effective, and modern vaccines are our best chance of protecting our children from diseases that can kill them. Is that right? Okay, so first of all, what does credible mean? right? You have to think about that word, right? Credible is only what evidence that the CDC wants you to hear, that people that have ties to the pharmaceutical industry want to hear. When you go and you look up some of the stuff and you hear people say things like quack or conspiracy or, you know, this person isn't credible or they've been debunked, you need to make that decision for yourself. So, I mean, but credible by whose standards, right? So you guys are very, you know, you guys are looking for answers. You guys are very powerful. You guys have the ability to be able to make the decision for yourself, you know. Why don't they want you to hear the other side of the story? That a red flag should go up. You know, then if you're somebody that even questions vaccines, I mean, I have some people too that are friends of mine that are in the middle. But even if they ask questions, which I think are very fair questions, like, you know, why is there aluminum in vaccines? Why are all these adverse events, you know, on the insert? Why? How come human cell, you know, DNA is being injected to us? Is it harmful? I mean, I think those are very fair questions. So, but then they're automatically like ridiculed and called freak or conspiracy. And so I think, you know, I was on a Pro-Vax site the other day because I also look at them, and even when I was before I came to the decision that I came to, I would actually go to Pro-Vax websites because I wanted to be fair and balanced, and I wanted to look at both sides and see maybe, you know, in my mind I was thinking, oh, maybe there's some middle ground, maybe there's just some miscommunication, and maybe, you know, it's, you know, they see something that the other side doesn't, and, you know, it was a lot of people making fun of people that don't vaccinate. And then you would post links. I would see people posting links and, you know, evidence as to why they feel the way that they do, and they would just be like, oh, that's debunked. Oh, that's that's some pseudo-scientific conspiracy garbage. I believe in science. You don't. You're pseudoscience. It was just like crazy, right? And I went on this website. I was telling April, but people were posting things like, help, I took a vaccine and now I'm black. What do I do? I'm like, what? Stop. And then they were like, oh yeah, well, I took a vaccine and I'm slowly turning into a Jew. What do I do? Oh, I took a vaccine. I gave one to my brother and he turned into a cat. What do I do? Like, it's just very immature, I swear. But these are some of the things. And then some people are just very mean. You know, you have people that actually come out and say, hey, you know, this is very serious. My brother, my sister, my kid died, you know, from a vaccine, or they're permanently paralyzed, or they're injured, or people that have had, you know, vaccine injuries themselves have come forward, and people just like ridicule them and call them really names and wish very hateful things upon them. And you know, my thoughts were, if they're so concerned as they say they are about people getting vaccinated because it's for the greater good, or it's to protect people that are immune compromised, why aren't you providing evidence to show that instead of making fun of us? You know, provide some clear scientific evidence, and instead of making fun of us. And why do you refuse to look at our side? What's wrong with that? Because if you're so right, then you have nothing to worry about, right? If we're so just crazy, you know, then you should be fine. So, you know, we encourage people to look at both sides because, you know, we're so sure that, you know, we're right, that, you know, we don't see the need to, you know, like thwart information and keep things from you know, anybody that wants to know. You guys are smart enough to make decisions for yourselves, and you also have to realize, I think some people might find this very daunting, but, you know, you can read a study. It might take you a while. You might have to look up a lot of terminology. You know, but this isn't beyond anything an average person can do. I think a lot of people also say that, like, they think that it's beyond them because they're not a doctor, they're not a scientist, so they can't possibly understand, and we should leave it up to those people. I think that there are people that are doing their jobs and have expertise in their field, but I think it's up to you to look at different sides, different opinions, different analysis, and then make your own decision. Don't just, if you just depending on somebody to make a decision for you, you're giving away your power. And this is why so many people are very, you know, we're basically in the situation that we are now because a lot of people have given away their power to authority or to people that they think are more intelligent than them just because they've spent a lot of time in school is not necessarily the case. If you're going to a school that is funded by the pharmaceutical industry and has influence over the curriculum, then you're only going to come out knowing what you've been taught. So
Right.
a lot of the doctors don't even know, and they're not. They're just basically just doing what they've been taught. They don't really get classes in nutrition, like 10 hours, something crazy like that, but like 2 years of pharmacology. And there have been doctors too that have come forward because their own kids have been like burned by the Gardasil vaccine, or I know there's Natasha Campbell McBride, her son was became autistic after a vaccine, and there's some more doctors and scientists that have
so
come
many.
out.
When my son first regressed into autism after being vaccine injured, and we went to look at the doctors who were treating children, they almost all of them that's how they came to learn about it, was through the experience of having their own child regress after receiving a vaccine. Dr. Brian Jepson, who used to work for the Thoughtful House, I think he's in research now and not working with patients anymore, but he was one that we went and saw, and he had a book called Changing the Course of Autism, and if you read about it, he was completely on the other side of the issue. He thought that was ludicrous. And then he did a funny thing. He said it was strange, but he actually found that there was scientific evidence to prove that they were, in fact, capable of causing autism and other problems. And that's when he went, whoa, because he had been taught in medical school that wasn't the case. And that's just one example. There's many, many others. Like I said, they almost all do. If you look at these doctors who have worked with autistic children and their other immune system problems and their gastrointestinal problems, and that's generally the case. That's usually how they find out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we're putting out information because we want people to not have to find out that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the most devastating things next to death. If your child, even if you don't have a child that's died from vaccine, to have a child become autistic or mentally, physically disabled, the divorce rate is very high in situations like that. The financial stresses are enormous, like medical bills in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The social prejudice that you face as a result of being crippled or having your child crippled, is horrendous. A lot of people don't treat them nice or acknowledge them as real human beings. You want to experience that, You'll find out who your real friends are, that's for sure. if
and I think ultimately, we're about freedom, so we're not telling anybody what they should do with their lives, but at the same time, this congressional hearing is disturbing because they're trying to tell us what to do with our lives, and they're trying to control us, and that's not what, that's not their job. Yeah. They might think it is, but that's not what,
they think it is.
Yeah, but that's not their job.
Yeah. And it's not, and for people that, I know there's a guy who has a son who has leukemia that they've been putting in front of the media and saying, people should get vaccinated because, he's a threat to our child. Well, first of all, that's immense information. It's actually the other way around. So anybody that's watching this that's saying that, we're being heartless by, telling people that it's okay not to vaccinate, it's actually worse to vaccinate, as we talked about earlier in the video. So people that get vaccinated, if they shed, then they're actually more of a threat to immune compromised people.
Right.
And I wish that people would really look at the information, because in that situation they're putting their child in danger by telling people that to get vaccinated and allowing their children to be exposed to people that have had vaccines.
Right.
And anything you want to say, closing?
No, just, do what you want to do with your lives. We're not here to tell you that, but this is our life, and we just want everybody to have their own freedom of choice. And so, you are smart enough. Isn't it ironic?
And powerful enough, you guys.
One of the senators is Al Franken. Remember Al Franken used to be on Saturday Night Live?
Oh yes,
and he
yes.
was. Yeah.
So do it.
Oh, I don't remember. He was like good enough.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right?
Not anymore.
You don't like him anymore?
No. It was after he.
I'm sorry, I messed that up.
He's in the Senate.
Yes, yeah. So actually, what we're gonna do, we're gonna show you a few things that you can look up we're gonna do some screen shooting, and we're gonna show you a few more things, and we'll also add links. And please don't believe us, because I know it sounds like straight out of like Buck Rogers, a lot of stuff that we're saying, but please do your research yourself. We want you to own this information and to know and be confident. And it's very funny, what a lot of these people who are listening to the hearing that they don't know is that these people who they're saying, oh, they're anti-vaccination, they have no idea, and they don't really even realize that most people are anti-vaccination because they have been burned themselves by vaccination, or they know somebody that has. So it's like there's no way they're going to turn those people down by telling them that like they just read a bad paper, or or they're just not getting the right information, especially when you start researching this stuff and you find out like how much you've been lied to on a profound level.
Right.
So it's a little bit laughable.
Yeah, the anti-vaxxers, most of the anti-vaxxers vaccinated their children. That's why they became anti-vax.
Yeah.
So they didn't start off that way.
Yeah.
They listened like everybody else.
So yeah, just the fact that as much respect as I have for Jenny McCarthy and Andrew Wakefield, I love them, but I think they're amazing. I have so much respect for them. But I mean, that's an insult to our intelligence that those are the only two things that most people bring up.
I heard someone call it the Jenny McCarthy movement.
I was like, what?
Wow.
So yeah, they don't know that the anti-vaccine movement's been around since the early 1800s.
It's been around since the invention of a vaccine.
Yeah.
And there's an urban legend that's the Raggedy Ann doll was actually started after a vaccine injury.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we thank you guys all. We're on Sundays, UCYA TV, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time. So check us out.
All right, guys. We're gonna go here, but peace, truth, and love.
Peace, truth, and love.
Okay. Mwah, bye. Well, hello. Welcome back. So we just wanted to take you through a couple of things that you can look up for yourself, and like we said, we were going to add some links in the bottom of the video so you can kind of go through some of this stuff yourself. So we're on the CDC website. It's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and this is their page on vaccine safety. So basically, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can go, and we'll put that link down there too if you want, but they talk about the history of vaccine safety, which is basically a lie. And it is. Right. And then, but I found really interesting when I was reading this is when you get down to the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. This is what they say. So they say, during the mid-1970s, there was an increased focus on personal health, and more people became concerned about vaccine safety. Several lawsuits were filed against vaccine manufacturers and healthcare providers by people who believed they had been injured by the diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, or DPT vaccine. Damages were awarded despite lack of scientific evidence to support vaccine injury claims. Now, they have references in the bottom. You can check those, number 4. But I mean, like, really, how are several cases won without scientific evidence?
Right.
People don't just give money out.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to try. And as we mentioned before, it's really hard. And April told you why it's hard. They still were able to do this. But they also don't mention as after this is when the pharmaceutical industries became immune to anybody suing them, because there were so many lawsuits that they somehow worked it out where they got immunity to being sued after that. So it's interesting too, because when you research, you kind of have to read between the lies and see, actually one thing that really helps me make decisions are who benefits.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Who benefits? Is it the vaccine injured parents and people that are coming out, or is it like the pharmaceutical industry that if people don't take their vaccines, it's going to cost them billions and billions of dollars and the faith and the trust of the human population.
Right.
And so what do parents have to gain that can't sue the pharmaceutical industry? Nothing, but really coming out and trying to tell other people so it doesn't happen to them.
And no parent would take the money over a healthy child. Not one, ever. When you consider the fact that some of these vaccine injuries are lifelong.
Yeah.
So even if they get an award, even if they get millions of dollars, they would give it back immediately for a completely healthy child. I guarantee you.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason too why they get so much money, it's because of the health bills and
Right.
when you have a child or you're injured yourself, you're gonna need money for medication and doctor visits or special therapies. And
Right.
that's another thing too. Think about medication. So if you are somebody that was injured by a vaccine and you're gonna need medication, who sells medication? Oh, the pharmaceutical industry.
Right. The same people who sell the vaccine that made you sick.
So, and you think about it, they don't cure illnesses, they manage them.
Right.
So, I mean,
So follow the money. It's always accurate.
yeah.
It's just that saying is it's cliche, but it's very accurate.
Yeah, so go and read this yourself. Also, what I found really interesting was this. So it says the NCBIA requires health care providers to administer vaccines to provide a vaccine information statement to the person getting the vaccine or his or her guardian. Now, I thought this was a little bit disturbing because I feel like that they're trying to deter people from actually looking at the insert, which we talked about is the important thing, which happens before. So these are the vaccine information statements. And as far as I can remember, I mean, I can't tell you exactly when, but I don't remember seeing this.
No.
So it seems like they've adapted, as more people are questioning these things, they've adapted this to their website to make it, to seem like, that they're really informing you, and they're not really
Right.
to the fullest of their potential. Let's just tap on the D tap, right? So we tap on one. So each, all of these are like the vaccines down here, and then you click on one. So let's do the D tap, right? Which is the diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. Pertussis is whooping cough. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then, look, you can print the VIS, or you can do it. Have a word file of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what's on it, and this is nowhere near the information that is on the vaccine insert. So, yeah, right. Tell me about it. Right? It's nowhere near this, right? And yeah.
Right. These are mostly, I mean, even moderate problems they consider seizure moderate problem. That sounds like a serious problem to me. But serious allergic reaction, things like that. There's, like she said, that's a very small list. But they say even very rare cases, there's permanent brain damage.
Yeah, but the thing you have to ask yourself is, how do you know that that's not going to happen to you? There's no test. There's no way to determine if it is, say it is rare, which it really isn't as rare as they say it is, but say it is very, very rare. How do you know that that's not going to happen to you? I've had 3 people in my life that have been vaccine injured, and nobody thought that it was going to happen to them.
No.
Who thinks that? Nobody.
Right. There's nothing in you that can tell you. And then that's like you were saying in the last video, and you were talking about how even people who are on the middle sometimes will become attacked. Well, recently I found a person, a friend of ours who was in the middle, and he was questioning the vaccine's relationship with autism. And so some girl jumps on and she says, well, that person would have to have a genetic predisposition, and then the vaccine triggers the autism. And he's like, well, isn't that the same as causing it?
Yeah.
Because how would you know unless you got the vaccine? And this is somebody who's in the middle and asking just a logical question, not, he's not going off the rails. He's just saying, well, wouldn't that be the same? I mean, how would you know even if you have some sort of quote genetic predisposition, there's really no test to determine that that's going to happen. There's really nothing you can do to.
And even if they even if there was a test, they probably wouldn't let people take it because people, like most people would probably test positive.
If it was a true test. And so it's anyway, so it's very misleading. So let's continue.
Okay, so then I'm just picking out little highlights on this page. And it says, what if there is a serious reaction? What should I look for? Look for anything that concerns you. Like, basically, it's not really. You basically get the package insert and then look for the reactions there, because it's like a page long and they're not even listing all of these.
Right.
So what should I do? You can go blah 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 and call 911. Go to the nearest hospital. So, you think? Okay. So then after that, what do you do? Afterward, the reaction should be reported to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, which is VAERS, right? This is what this is. So now we're at the VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Go here to report an adverse event. So the thing about VAERS is not a lot of people know about it. People know about it because they've been finding out through the internet by people that have been at vaccine injured, and then that's how they found out about it. Now the CDC, I don't even remember seeing the CDC list this a while ago. They never even brought up the VAERS, and now people are questioning. They're like, oh yeah, the VAERS, you can go there. And I mean, really, it is a database, and this is where, if you've seen people saying, oh, since from 2005 to 2014, nobody has died from the measles vaccine. I mean, I'm sorry, nobody's died from wild measles, but 108 people have died from the measles vaccine. They're getting their data from VAERS. So you just go on VAERS and find out, go through the data, and you can look at how many people died from the measles vaccine. You'd have to count yourself from 2005 to 14. But more people have actually died in this country from the vaccine than from the wild measles.
And not a lot of people report to VAERS because it's an arduous process. They ask a lot of personal questions. And as you can see, it's a government-run agency because I believe vaccines are, can you highlight this right here?
Where, which one?
Contains coincidence events.
Where? Sorry. Oh, this one.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say that vaccine is the number one cause of coincidence.
Yeah.
Because everything in the vaccine world is considered to be a coincidence. So you have more than 10 million vaccines per year are given to children less than 1 year old, usually between 2 and 6 months of age. At this age, infants are at greater risk for certain medical adverse events, including high fever, seizures, and sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. Some infants will experience these medical events shortly after vaccination by coincidence.
Oh, really? Oh, well, go figure.
So coincidence make it difficult to know whether a particular adverse event resulted from a medical condition or from a vaccination. Therefore, vaccines providers are encouraged to report all adverse events following vaccination, whether or not they believe the vaccination was the cause. So, so they're kind of trying to say, well, people report on this, but we don't really know if that was the cause or if it was just a coincidence.
They'll say, oh, well, we don't know what caused the reaction, but, it wasn't the vaccine. Well, how do you know if it's not the vaccine if you don't look at it? How scientific is that to just completely negate? Aren't you a vaccine? Aren't you supposed to look at all possibilities?
Right. And SIDS is a controversial one because it's the sudden death of a child that very young infant, and then they'll just die and for no apparent reason. So there's a lot of misconceptions about what SIDS is because this had been linked to children sleeping on their stomach, and so people assumed that it had something to do with suffocation. But death by suffocation is death by suffocation.
Yeah,
it's not SIDS. It doesn't mean we don't know it suddenly happened without our knowledge. It means that we don't understand what went wrong. So we're just going to call it SIDS. So if they don't know what caused it, then they can't know that it wasn't the vaccine because that's proving a negative and that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So moving on. Speaking of coincidences, April, look what I found. So this is the hideous C-SPAN. Brave New World 1984 Congressional hearings on childhood vaccinations. We're going to put that link if you want to see the whole thing. And we'll put the short one too. This is Dr. Ann Schuster. And you can look at the transcripts at the bottom. And you can look at, the speakers, right?
Yeah.
So these are all the speakers that spoke, whether they were on the panel or they were called to testify. So what I did, we'll just do a couple of them. So let's just do the politicians, right, that are on the panel. The doctors you won't be able to look them up. I think this is more for the politicians. So we're going to do, I think the first one was Lamar Alexander. OpenSecrets.org. This is a really good source just for seeing who funds your politicians. So we're using this for I'm going to back this up a little bit. To look at everybody on the panel, we found, we'll just do a few, but then you can actually use this list, go down the list, and everybody, on every single person, not the doctors, every single politician has funding from the pharmaceutical industry, and it makes you wonder how really unbiased can they be,
Right.
you know, when a huge part of their funding comes from politicians. So
Exactly.
I used Lamar Alexander. I looked him up, and he came up. There he is, Republican, I think Tennessee, right? Oh, well, yeah, look at that. Okay, so then you can scroll down. I mean, there are other things you can find out here too, but this is what we did. Top 5 industries. So we go down. There are a couple of little charts here, but you want to go down to the top 5 industries, view more data. Well, his is right here, pharmaceutical and health products, right? Total, you can see $287,700, more money than I make in a year, or health professionals. So these are the 2 things you want to look for. We'll do another one. We'll go back. What is the next person that was on the list? It's like I wrote it down, so I have to keep going back. Tammy Baldwin. Okay, so let's look at Tammy Baldwin. I know, can you believe it? It's shocking, right? So you just look up Tammy Baldwin. And she's a member. Bam! Her picture should come up. You see what she looks like?
There
Oh,
she
there's
is.
Tammy Baldwin. Well, let's look at that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Democrat too.
Yeah, so go down, bam, bam, bam. Oh, did we pass it? Oh,
Yeah,
top
he
5
passed it.
industries. So we don't see hers here. This one, health professionals. Okay, so health professionals still, she's receiving money from the
health industry.
The health industry.
Yeah, so these
right?
is like doctors and medical,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Let's
Those
do-
type of lobbyists that work in the medical industry.
Right. And then they have a section that says other, but you don't know, like, is that more pharmaceutical money? Who knows? I don't know. Could be a private investor. Who knows? Let's do Michael Bennett. Bennet. So Michael Bennett. Bam. Look at that. Hi, Mike. What's going on?
Democrat from Colorado.
Oh, snap. There we go.
There's Michael.
Oh,
What's up,
Michael. What's up? Hey, dude. Okay, so we go down here. Top 5 industries. And you go down and... Whoa, but yo, look at that. Oh,
Mike,
snap.
how could
Oh, I
you?
know, man. Say it ain't so. Okay. So then you can also help professionals. So most of them we found...
And
I think,
hospitals and nursing too.
oh, hospitals and nursing too, right? And then this is also really a good resource too. If you see a politician talking about something, maybe educate, like, you just see basically who's funding them, and think about whoever's funding them. Would they have a balanced and unbiased opinion when they're speaking on it, because they're getting money from these people, right?
Bennett makes bank. Look at that guy.
I know. Snap. You know what? I quit. I know. That's April's son, but don't worry about that, because vaccines don't cause autism.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, and then I wanted to show you something else. Let me see. Health Resources and Services Administration. Statistics reports. I always have trouble saying that word. Statistics. I gotta push out the tongue. Okay, so then these are the petitions filed, all the way up from from March 5th, 2014, starting from 1988 down. This is the, let me see, what is it? So going down. Okay, claims filed and compensated or dismissed by vaccine. So these are the vaccines. These are the injuries, or the people that filed. This is the death, people that died from the vaccine. Oh, but you know what? They're so safe and effective. And then this is the total. These are the people that were compensated. They got money, and these are the cases that were dismissed. And these are just for vaccines from March from last year.
Right.
I think there's more. This is from 2006 to present. Yeah, you can just kind of explore, but these are just good resources that you can explore yourself. So when people say, oh, well, that doesn't exist, and vaccines are completely safe and effective, you want to say, well, how do you know that? Or, I went on this website, I went on government websites, I looked at these statistics, I looked at these people that have filed, and for injury. And then once, what am I trying to say? Once you get, compensated, that it takes like a long time to pay out, right? It takes a long time, like years.
Yeah, sometimes
So
they
it's-
make deals to pay out over certain
Or
periods
some
of
period-
time.
yeah, exactly. So you don't get like the money at once, and it's just a hassle. And another thing that's really interesting is I find where people want to disregard parents or people that speak out that have been vaccine injured as anecdotal evidence.
Right.
Isn't that data?
That is
That's data.
That is data.
That's
And
data.
Has people are, if you're familiar with the Hear This Well campaign, have you watched those videos? Some of those videos?
I
I mean,
have.
we both made videos.
Yeah.
But
I watched some of them.
there's like hundreds of videos of people who are giving anecdotal information about their child who was vaccine damaged. That's valid scientific data. Yeah.
Data, especially if in which most people can, they can document that their child was normal before
Exactly.
they got vaccine injured. Or adults, there are a lot of adults, there are old people, there are people that have taken the flu shot, they're Gardasil victims that have been teenagers and they're paralyzed now or they're dead.
Right. The Hear This Well campaign was just about autism. But this is much deeper than that. There's all kinds of injuries, like she mentioned.
Yeah. What's interesting, too, it's going back to the autism thing for a second. They'll say stuff like, correlation doesn't equal causation. Well, I mean, how long have you had to come up with the cause?
Right.
Like 30 years? Like 3 decades? Yeah. Really? So if you're going to say that, maybe you should put something in the place of that, because the only thing that's, that's correlated with the rise in autism is the vaccine schedule that we've given, that's been given to the children. And then on top of that, you have people coming out and, saying that they've been vaccine injured or their child was vaccine injured or killed from a vaccine. That's data. Sorry. Data.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think that this pretty much, and we're going to, like we said, we're going to put a bunch of links in the bottom. Please share this video. Oh yeah, you always forget to promote ourselves. We're so bad. It's true. So like us on Facebook, share, listen to our show. Send us a positive message. If it's not positive, you will get shut down, but that's cool.
No, we're kidding.
You have no choice.
Yeah, just keep up with what we're doing. Hopefully stay on top of this issue because it's not going away right just yet.
Yeah.
So we need to stay on top of it and think for yourself.
All right.
So until next time, peace, truth, and love, y'all.
Peace, truth, love you guys. Bye-bye.